All right. Hello, all of you people out there that are watching this right now. I'm really happy to have Shauna Griffiths with me here today because I'll tell you what, we were originally trying to do this show about a month ago. And at the time, I was really just like overwhelmed with like life and business. And I was really just feeling like a failure, honestly, because I've been doing business and trying to create things and content, and things just weren't really working. And me and her, we had a great conversation like before, and I was really excited to do it. But that day, I just couldn't really do it. Like I knew I couldn't show up very well. And Shauna, she gave me the grace to say, that's okay. You can do it another time. And then here we are doing this show another time, and here I am again feeling flustered and getting into this. But here is Shauna again, just showing up as this like person, this like rock for me here, without judgment and kindness, and is here to help us bring out some great ideas and to help me to talk to her so that we can just have a great show and say some great things that are going to be really important for a lot of people, or maybe not. I think just the point of us, I want us to be here to share our ideas together here. And anyway, you look at Shauna's profile, she's like out like living life. She's out biking with her dogs out in Colorado, in the thick of life on that side, and on the business side, helping leaders grow, helping companies grow. So Shauna, just nice to have you here. How the heck is it going? What's going on?
Oh, thank you so much. It is honestly, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for following up with me to make this happen. And I think you're doing great. So no flustered, no flusteredness needs to, come into play. I think, we're all dealing with so much these days. And you mentioned some of the things that I'm doing, personal life, business. And, it's not without challenge, right? And so I think most days I have a feeling of a bit of my own fluster before, as I'm trying to make things happen for myself, for clients. So I think the more we are open about it, just real and authentic, the more it normalizes it. Because I think sometimes people seem like they have everything figured out, but we're all figuring it out every day. So I'm so grateful to be here and just to be able to have open, honest conversation. And hopefully, people can take some great things away from our conversation today.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, so that kind of leads to a first question. So like what, in your experience, I wanted to go in two things. I mean, first, I want to ask, maybe just work into. I want to ask, like, what is this idea of leadership is a sport, but also, you're talking about this authenticity and how we're growing, and how we're all trying to grow and be the leader that we want to be, that we feel like we should be, that we need to be. What is that you see as that number one block, the biggest block to this, unleashing this authenticity, being a great leader, that you've seen?
So let me start with grounding, if it's okay for the audience, is grounding people in this idea of leadership as a sport. I've been an athlete my whole life. I played basketball in college at the University of Michigan, went on to run cross country in grad school, and then I worked in the NBA family for 13 years, and then went on in my career. So sport has always been a big part of my existence. And, when athletes are trying to perform at their best, when they're pursuing excellence as an athlete, you can kind of look at them and think, what did they do to get there? They've had a coach, they've practiced certain things, they've made their game better, and it's this constant pursuit. And, people know of people like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant who were known even when they were at the top of their game, they kept practicing. They kept showing up before practice, staying after, having all these various coaches that were helping them. And so I translate that into the working as humans. When we go into the working world, if we actually take that same approach of making ourselves better than ever yesterday, we're in constant pursuit to learn, grow, and evolve. And doing so, when you think of it that way, then to me, leadership, you can see leadership as a sport, right? You want to have the coaches, have the practices that help you to perform at your best, and not in a performative way per se, but truly growing and evolving so that you can maximize your impact, on, for yourself, but also for the people who are in your care and the business that are in your care. So that is the concept of leadership as a sport. And I believe that anybody listening to this, myself, you, we have the choice to participate in that, to play the game, as what I call leadership athletes. So again, you say like a basketball athlete, a football athlete. Well, we're leadership athletes, is how I think of it.
Mm.
So again, that's the foundation. And what I think gets in our way a lot of times is ourselves. It's the thought, it's insecurity, it's feeling like, well, maybe I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, or, you know, sometimes not having these tools in our toolbox to be able to utilize. So my philosophy is, if we can follow a mindset, if we can see other people that can do it, then we can start to shift that and see possibility. If we see possibility, then we have a greater chance of getting out of our own way to go pursue it, to attack it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. And I think that's something we take for granted. This,
Yeah.
if when we know that others, when we see that others are doing it, because there's so much, yeah, self doubt. Can I do it? Should I do it? Am I the right person to do it? Can I do it? But like, think of all those billboards we see of like people that are like doing it. Like like a famous basketball player on the billboard who made it, who came from nothing. The stories of all the famous, the biggest athletes who worked so hard every day and made success happen. Every little success that we see on social media of people making their dreams happen. It's like, for some reason, I think sometimes we look at that and we don't believe it. But if we're looking for evidence that we can do it, it's everywhere. There's evidence of you that you can do it. It is all around us all the time. But for some reason, we feel like, well, but maybe I can't. Maybe it's not meant for me. And granted, there's a lot of people. Most people don't achieve what they want in life, and they live life with lots of regrets, for sure. But it's so funny. I just had this realization some time ago, whatever, and I have it all the time that, like, no, the signs are everywhere that I can do what I'm thinking about right now. I don't need to ask God for it. I don't need to beg somebody else to help me. It's like the evidence is right there. So I think that's right on. And just, one other thing that, from the beginning, when you were talking about, yeah, like these like athletes like the Kobe, that he's at the top of his game, yet he still comes into the gym at 4 a.m. to start doing practice before practice, and then has a practice after practice, and he's at the top of his game. Now, this is so relevant for me in business. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in business, because over the years I've a burst of success. I do like a lot of work to try to get a new client, and then I have a few clients, and then it's all good. And then I take my foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. And then I find myself like, oh no, now I got to like work my ass off again to have this happen. And it's only been kind of recently that I've just made sure, okay, I'm not going to let that happen again. It doesn't matter how good I think things are going. There's going to be a winter. Even in the off season, that's when champions are made, in the off season, right? When you're like, that's when you got to really work the hardest and keep it up. And that's what I've learned with business. Just constantly be reaching out, always doing, never really stop. You can't stop. Not in this game, not in this entrepreneurship game.
Yeah. You bring up such great points. And one thing that, if it's okay, I'd like to point out for the audience, my intention when I talk about operating this way is not that it is the constant grind, that you're 24/7 killing yourself out there, working so hard, and then you know, that is not necessarily an effective way. The way I'm talking about is, you are in pursuit of excellence. You're in pursuit of your top performance. Your top performance isn't necessarily the same top performance as someone else's. So a lot of times when people say, oh, you can see someone else being successful, it's not about look at that person and compare yourself to that person. It's, if you can look at that person through a lens of possibility and think, what can I learn from that person through their journey. And you're like, oh, they've been able to, perhaps it's what you were just talking about, they've been able to find the right balance between execute, outreach, close deals. I was actually just talking about that earlier today. When you're doing all those things, when you are responsible for doing all those things, sometimes it can feel like a lot, because it is. But the reality is, when the more you practice it, you're able to find the right rhythm for yourself. And then, but some of that comes from looking at someone else and saying, ah, possibility. I see how they got there. Now let me figure out the path for me from what I've learned. Then you can grow and evolve in your own path at your own pace.
Hmm. Yeah, can you share a bit about that, like in your own journey? Being a D1 college athlete, basketball. Like, how did and can you talk a bit about the sacrifice too? In whatever way that means for you, because that's really what I've been thinking a lot about this in this last year.
Yeah.
I've definitely sacrificed stuff in business, but the sacrifices, I guess, to get success now in business, the things I've sacrificed are these things like, say, maybe having a consistent friend group that I can go out with on the weekends and like go to bars or something, or being able to take just weekends maybe to go travel somewhere because I have a consistent salary where I know that I have Saturday, Sunday off and I don't have to go to work until Monday. And maybe it's kind of like things like that, that they're sacrifices, but they haven't necessarily felt like sacrifices because I've been doing work and working towards my vision. And I imagine sports can be kind of similar. But what did that like? What does that look like for you? Growing up into sports, and how does that translate into business world leadership? Say.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that it's changed a lot over time, but that's only because I did a lot of work to become more aware of my priorities. So when I was growing up, all I cared about was playing basketball. I didn't have the friend group that I hung out with. All I cared about was playing basketball. To a degree that I think I didn't have that perspective around priorities. That was my main priority because I wanted to play college ball. So was it air quotes wrong? No, it's what I did. And the reality is, to your point, I made sacrifices. I wasn't hanging out with friends. I was playing, I played the school season, but I also played AAU at the same time. So I was going from one practice to the next practice, or I'd have games on weeknights and then I went and played games on the weekend. So I sacrificed friend groups. So I totally know what you're saying. The reality is that at some point, I believe, and this is part of why I encourage people to work on their self awareness, at some point, we need to be able to check ourselves and say, is this what's best for me at this time in my life? So when I went to college, I kept that same mentality. I wasn't in an environment where someone was helping me to, and I didn't know already how to check myself in that. So in college, all I did was study and play basketball. I did not have the typical college experience where you're hanging out with your friends and going to parties. As embarrassing as this is, I'm going to admit to all of you, I literally went to zero parties in all of college. Not even kidding you. It
Mm.
wasn't on my radar. But here's what happened is that then that phase of my life was over, and then I had to go on to something else and then start well, I actually went on to grad school and then I started running cross country. But I did the same thing because if you don't challenge yourself to become aware of and fix those things that aren't necessarily working for you, wherever you go, they will show up. Right. So when I went to grad school, I had that same mentality. And so all I did was go to grad school and run, because I was literally running cross country. Then I got into the working world and all I did was work and work out. And so I wasn't facing the fact that I wasn't looking at, should my priorities be what they are right now? Is this actually serving me or is it not serving me? It took me a long time to actually lift my head up and go, wait, this behavior, this like fixation on things is limiting other things in my life that are I want to be a priority now. And the reality is when I carried that through my career for a long time. And then when I was in my mid 30s, I met my husband, my now husband, and I had this moment where I was like, oh, wait, he is my person. And if I want this relationship, I have to make room for the relationship, which means that I can't work from 4 a.m. till the end of the day and then come home and work more at my, in my apartment. And so again, I had to learn it the hard way for myself. So I'm sharing that the more we can look at these things with self-awareness and ask ourselves the question of, is this way of operating serving me at this point in my life? And be willing to make changes if our priorities have shifted or if we want our priorities to shift. These are just really important things that, to your point, I've learned through trial and error from sports throughout my career.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is a great point because yeah, like we're in our zones and we don't exactly know if what we're doing is right or wrong. We're like doing something and it's working and we're surviving and we're getting a predictable result. But a lot of us, most of us don't take the time yet to really question like, is this even really what I want to be doing? Or like,
Exactly.
can I change it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I actually said the words right or wrong in what I was saying, but what I actually try to ask myself more, because right or wrong means I'm being judgmental about myself, right? And I don't necessarily want to approach it that way. That's why I try to ask myself, is this serving me right now? Is this in my best interest? Is this going to help me get where I want to go in life? And sometimes people, when I'm working with people, in the coaching realm, when people ask me about, well, they ask me about a job that they might want to go for, I will usually ask them to pause and step back and ask themselves, what life do they want to live? Because
Yeah.
it is our way that we can keep that bigger perspective of life in mind. Otherwise, you can go for any job anywhere, and then in 5 years, again, you're going to be 5 years ahead in your job, in your career per se, but is that where you want to be at that time?
Whoa, Sean, I just had a realization. So maybe that's like got to be one of the biggest problems our entire society has is that they don't really know, like they don't have really a vision of what that life is that they really want. And they're not actively asking, is this serving me? Because they don't really have any like reference of what they should be going for. And so, but what our society has done has made money something that you should go for. So I think most people probably just attribute, well, I just got to make money so I can live. So they think, okay, what's the best way to make money? It doesn't have to be so I can be rich, so I can be successful and famous. It's just I need money to live. So how can I make money? How can I do that? When that's like it's just the wrong point. It's got to be, what kind of impact do I want to make? Or what, if I could really have a life that I really live, like what am I doing? Who am I with? How do I act? What does that look like? And I think us entrepreneurs, we have that. And that's why we're successful. But most people don't have that. But probably even, I don't know, everyone. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not. Like we just don't take enough time to really think about what our mission is and what we really want.
Well, I think you're completely right. And I love that it came to you through this discussion. I do think that there's an element of people often don't stop and ask themselves those questions. What do I want? But here's the thing, someone listening to this may say, well, I don't know what I want to be in 10 years. I don't know the life I want. Well, here's the thing, if you're entertaining a certain job or a certain career, I encourage you to imagine what that life would be like. And then ask yourself, do you want to walk in those shoes or not? And if you don't know what that life is like, then find someone and ask them, tell me what it's like to live this life. Tell me what it's like a day in a life of you in this job. What is that like? And there's a degree to which when I actually got out of working in professional sports, it's because I didn't want to be at an arena for a game 44 nights a year or 44 games a year when on top of the work days. I didn't want that life anymore. So it's not right or wrong. Some people thought I was absolutely nuts for leaving the environment that I had um been in for so long and had done well in. But it's like only you inside know if you want that lifestyle, but those are the questions that I encourage people to ask. Again, I think people can get to your point about, well, I want to make a lot of money, so I'm going to go be in finance. Okay, it sounds good, but what does that mean for your lifestyle? And then people can go, oh wait, do I want that or not? It's just, that's the check-in, that's the self-awareness. And here's the thing, if you decide you do want that, then great, then experience that for a while, but give yourself the gift of a gut check every once in a while to ask, is this still serving me, or am I stuck somewhere and I'm actually not able to live a full life because I made this choice.
Hmm. Hmm. Is there any kind of is there like a kind of method or process that you kind of go through, or like what are what are those questions that you would recommend someone to ask? Is this something you do regularly? Do you like schedule this, or does it just come up when you think about it? How do you how can we systemize this a little bit of how to kind of go after what you really want, and then making sure that you're checking in and keeping on track?
Yeah, it's funny. Once you start doing it and you put it into your practice, again, I'm speaking in like leadership athlete, leadership as a sport language. In the beginning, it needs to be more of, oh, to your point, a practice. It needs to be, I'm going to schedule this. It might be once a week. This is why it can be really helpful to have a coach so that you can, or an advisor, so that you can build in these things and it becomes a practice. So, people are listening to this and this is the first time you've heard of, or if it's finally resonating with you, this idea of checking in with yourself, then maybe schedule it once a week, maybe schedule it once a month and say, okay, the things I'm doing right now, are they serving me or not? But then it becomes this lens with which you start to bring to more decisions than you would think. Because this sometimes it's not just, am I going to go for this big job or am I going to move? Sometimes it's, do I really want to go to that thing on the weekend? Do I really want to go to a family event per se? And you can ask yourself, well, is that dynamic going to serve me? And if it's not, then you can be like, you know what? I'm going to choose something else for myself. So when you practice it with smaller decisions, it becomes a lot easier to do with big decisions, meaning things like a new job that might take you across the country, those types. So I just really encourage people to start practicing this stuff on smaller decisions first or smaller opportunities. And then, you just learn how to start making choices that are that actually serve you, that aren't necessarily specific to please someone else. You're not really thinking about, well, everybody else is doing it, or I should do this or that. When it just comes down to, does this serve me as a human or not, it gets really clear really quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and it's funny how how it can evolve for you. This thing that's right for you. Um, so some things have happened to me recently, and yeah, I love this. Yeah, your idea here of starting with like smaller things, kind of smaller actions. Maybe it's because yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of people that they say, yeah, I don't know really what I want in that 10 years. I don't know what my North Star is. So if you don't know, you have to start on this front end of experimenting, of making a decision to do something. And then you got to check in with yourself and say, hey, did that feel good or not? Did this serve me or not? So if it did, then I can make a note to do that again. If not, let's avoid that. Um, like I had this experience sophomore year of college. I was walking through my campus. It's a rainy day in Bellingham, Washington, and it's like I'm thinking about what to do because sophomore year, that's where the next year you're deciding what college you're going to go into and all that. And I always knew I kind of wanted to do something with business, but I had this strike, this like message that said spread good ideas. And I thought, spread good ideas. What does that mean? What does that mean that I should do? Well, I guess marketing is like spreading good ideas. And marketing is a tool. It can be used for good and for evil, and it's an important thing. I really like that. Spreading ideas. What does that involve? And since then, that has always been my North Star: is how can I do things that fit me, that are going to help me to spread good ideas into the world. So the next thing that came was, one of my best friends was a videographer. I had a marketing internship with the volunteer center there. And then my friend was a videographer. And I thought, hey, let's make videos about events happening at the volunteer center. Let's go interview people. So that was like a spreading of good ideas, because that place was good. And a video is one of the best ways to spread ideas. So I thought, okay, let's do that. And then we had the company, and then I started, okay, maybe can I work with nonprofits, and I can write and do copy, and I can do those things. Okay, marketing coaching and writing, talking to people. So the most recent, and I've been like, what I feel like I am very much training for something. This marketing, this writing, this communication, there's something there. It has something to do with an organization where I'm maybe helping like youth with education. That's like something that's just been in my mind, but it's something to serve people on this level. But recently, and I'm sure you can relate to this, we've been entrepreneurs or just working, and we're working all day, and we're mostly by ourselves. It's like we're kind of going solo. Yeah, we got friends, we talk to people, but it's kind of us. And I've been doing everything online. And I recently joined this place here in Ipanema. It's called the Arca Hub. And it's a co-working space / space, like an innovation kind of center for tech startups. And so anyway, I'm going there so I can meet people. And then I start like going to these networking events there, and I'm meeting people, and I'm looking for a wife too. So I figure, hey, the bars haven't been like the best place for that necessarily. Maybe an environment like this is better. So now I'm like talking to people in person, and I'm starting to like do this networking thing in person, where I'm just meeting people and making these in-person connections. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. This is even maybe more what I'm great at, is like talking and connecting like this. So the layers just keep unfolding, as I've latched onto this one idea. And I don't think it'll ever change, but I just think it's so important, Sean. I think that's like the most important thing, is to have that mission and follow it. Like, I don't know what I'd do
Yeah.
without it.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the way you just described that is that you started that story by saying you're not completely clear about what that mission is, but you think you know. So you're pursuing it, and you're willing to learn and grow, evolve, like along the journey. That is the beauty of that. So that you were willing to get outside of what can be the comfort of your own home and your private, arena where you can network with people online, to be like, no, you know what? I'm going to go in person. I'm going to go do those things and try something new. And that is the beauty of asking yourself, is what I'm doing right now all that I could be doing? Could I be getting in my own way by not going out and venturing and networking and that kind of thing in person? Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's a new possibility. Let me go explore that. And I'm glad we're talking about it, just to make it more clear for your listeners. That's what we're talking about, is like asking yourself those things, and then having a willingness to explore. But here's the thing, like, one is a willing to ask yourself, are you aware? What is it that's going on? Then there's a willingness to, like, are you willing to do anything about it? And then there's the action that you're going to take. Those are three separate things. If you just had this idea, but you weren't actually thinking about, oh, yeah, I'm willing to go do that, and then actually take the action, you still be just inside your house. And I say these things, I have had to actually get myself out of that. We were living in Colorado, as you mentioned. We lived at the top of the mountain in Golden, Colorado. Beautiful, loved it, so many things. At the same time, I was like, wow, you know what? I've kind of made my world pretty small, by being behind my computer or those type of things. There's a lot of reasons why we ended up moving to Michigan, but the reality is, since I've been here in the last 3 months, I've been meeting with my former teammates. I've been meeting with a lot of different people in the community, and I'm realizing it opens another layer of myself up. And I'm willing to explore it. I'm willing to go to these things. And so that allows us to continue to like pull the layers off, keep evolving. And, I don't exactly know what my end goal is. I don't exactly know who Shauna in 10 years is going to be, but I'll tell you what, I'm on the journey, I'm in the game, and I'm showing up every single day to learn and grow and evolve so that I can become like who I'm meant to be, is how I think of it.
Yeah. And what do you look for in everyday life? Like, how do you know which opportunities you want to take and which people you should pay attention to? Um, are you more, like feeling based, or more like, kind of structured, like you have a plan a lot every day? How does that work for you?
I'm laughing as you're saying it because listen, at different points in my life, it looks a bit differently. So I do try to structure my days. I think that it helps me feel just more, if I feel more organized. It's it's the opposite of being scattered marbles. um, so the way I think about it is I definitely align with my values, right? So I want to do great work with great people. So I listen, I observe. If someone approaches me, say on LinkedIn, and I'll check them out. What are they talking about? What language are they using? How are they communicating? And that tells me something about them. I realize that by talking with someone, usually you can obviously realize a lot more about someone, but at the same time, people, the way people show up tends to represent like who they are. And I've learned a long time, many times throughout my journey, that when someone shows you who they are, believe it, listen to it. You can investigate a little bit if you really want to. And at the same time, like I go by my values. I value awareness. I value integrity, authenticity. And if someone is not in those lanes, so to say, if they're not showing up in a way that signals that those are parts of how they operate, then I can choose to not interact with that person. Or I can choose to interact cordially and then move on. And I think sometimes people feel like there's an obligation. You have to talk to every single person and all of that. It's okay. I am not for everyone, and everyone's not for me. I didn't invent that saying. It's a really good one, is why I repeated it, but it's one for all of us to remember. So, I think I really do govern myself on, is what I'm doing, is it intentional? Is it with awareness? How is it creating positive impact? And, throughout my days, keeping a check on myself and how am I feeling through it? Because there is a lot going on in society. We were talking earlier about what what am I consuming? Everything from, yes, what am I putting into my body, but it's also media. We're living in a very tumultuous, chaotic world right now. So if I know I want to be self-aware, I want to be my best every day, then I know I need to limit my consumption of toxic media. So, again, it all comes back to what is going to help me continue to learn, grow, and evolve into who I'm meant to be. And listen, I'm not perfect by any means. I had a total breakdown last week because I just was completely overwhelmed by a lot of things going on in life. But I'd allow myself to go through that and then say, okay, how do I want to carry myself forward? What adjustments do I need to make? And then do those things, because nobody's going to do it for me. That's the thing. And anybody who's listening to this, there are people out there who will support you. You definitely have a group probably, or people who will support you. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to yourself. And I hold true to that so much. I can't blame someone else that they did or didn't do something. I have to look at myself and say, okay, well, how can I facilitate the path forward? Or do I actually want to be stuck for right now? Sometimes we have to let ourselves be stuck for right now, learn our way through it, and then move on. But I don't think things happen by coincidence per se. Things happen in our lives to teach us certain things and to get us to certain parts.
Yeah.
And again, along the way, it's our responsibility to extract what we can from those situations and keep going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree with that. Yeah, I think you have to. Everything that happens, it has to be something that you can learn from. Like it has to be something that is positive. It doesn't mean it makes you happy. It doesn't mean that it was an amazing thing. Really bad, horrible things happen, but you have no choice but to see whatever happened, to learn from it and move with it, and then see that it could be pushing you in the exact direction that you need to go. Like I had that video production company with my two best friends, and basically one day they quit on me and just said, Ryan, it's all your fault in this business. We're not making enough sales, so we're gonna go off and do our own thing. I was like, holy shit, this is like a whole life. I was thinking about us doing this, and now that's it. But it pushed me into doing what I'm doing right now, to have this time to be on my own, to kind of be free of these guys and discover myself and move here to Brazil and have this business and do everything. It's like it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I mean, but there's things that I can't rationalize and say positive. Like one of my best friends when I was young was killed riding a bike, just killed by a drunk driver. It's like, why? Why would that happen? That doesn't make sense. How can I say, oh, why don't you learn from that one, Ryan? So I don't know about that, but I mean, it has to be that, because if you don't see everything that happens as something that's for you, that's happening for you, then you can't move, like you can't live. If that's something is holding you back, if you don't forgive that person, if you don't see that whatever happened is something that's can help you somehow, when you by looking at it the right way, you're just stuck and you might as well be dead. So it's
Yeah.
like there's no choice, and you have to be, yeah, I think it's ultimate responsibility too. Like we have ultimate power and ultimate responsibility. That is the truth, but it's scary because once you have ultimate responsibility, that means that you have to start thinking, oh, if all this stuff's happening in my life that I don't like, that means it's my fault. Now, it's not like your fault you were born poor, but it can be your fault that maybe if you don't like it, that you're not taking action. You can take action. You can't play victimhood, and you can't blame the rest of the world. You do have a choice.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you told that story because it brings up the idea of asking yourself, how am I contributing to this in this moment? So, to your point, if you're not where you want to be financially, if you don't have friends, if you're sad about looking for a wife, at the time when I was not dating, I was in New York City, and a dear friend of mine said to me, he was like, "Are you dating anyone?" I was like, "No, are you kidding me? I never dated." He was like, "Well, Shauna, no, so like your person is not going to come and knock at your apartment door." And I was like, oh, right. So again, it's like I had to ask myself, was I contributing to finding my person or not? Well, by sitting inside my house, by not trying online dating, by not trying going out, all those things, I wasn't contributing to doing the things that may open me up to finding my person. So, I just want to make that point. The other element that you mentioned about the passing of I think you said it was your friend. And um, here's the thing, I'm not saying that bad things happen for, oh, it's supposed to teach you something, or, oh, it happened for a reason. I don't mean it like that. Here's the thing, even through that, you had an opportunity to learn through that experience. It could have been you learned how to handle grief. It could, in a certain way maybe you learned that, gosh, if someone's really your good friend, you want to show up for them differently in life. Or do you see what I'm saying? Like, we have this opportunity to ask ourselves, what can we learn from certain situations? And it doesn't mean that you have to make a good story out of something traumatic or bad that happens. And you can find something in there that you can say, oh gosh, I really learned a lot about that. And that I'm going to carry that forward in my life.
Yeah. 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 You're right. Yeah. It's hard to understand, to think, man, like why, death is a weird thing. I mean, just or somebody just getting injured really bad for no reason. Or so I've had a couple manic episodes, bipolar manic episodes in my life. Like was in the hospital the first time, and it's like, why? This is so weird. Why would I have this? It doesn't, like, it's just a dumb thing. It doesn't even make sense in life. And I've definitely learned from that and do see it as something very good. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is where I think really, like, spirituality needs to come into play, like these kinds of beliefs of things that we can't really explain other than maybe there, like, reincarnation exists, and maybe we are having new lives so that we can learn, so that if people die, it's not the end. Like, you don't go to a burning hell, but you can recreate and you learn from your past lives. Like, maybe that's one way that you can deal with it, and you can rationalize these kinds of things. And or I very much believe just in a very loving universe, a loving God. Like, I really just have this deep belief and know that everything is happening for my good. The universe has my back. Like, it doesn't make sense that life could be the other way, that life could just be either nothing or for a negative. And I've just know from experience too, as I've practiced seeing the good in things, seeing good in people, being non-judgmental, having goals, taking action. I know that when I take action to a goal, I will, doesn't mean I get there, but I get into the exact place that I need to be. Not the place that I necessarily wanted to be, but the place that is best for me. And it just happens time and time again, just because I have this belief and faith that life is good. And
Yeah.
that's really what I want to help more people understand. I think that's really the core of these good ideas, is that if we can help people to love life, to love themselves, and, like, love life more, understand that life is good. Like, that's all it takes, is a shift in the way that you think. There's nothing physical that needs to change. If you just think differently, all this good stuff can happen. And
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Yeah, and here's the thing. You gave really great tangible examples of things that you have practiced over time, a certain way you believe, certain things that you say to yourself, things that, so if people are hearing this episode, it's not that you just woke up one day and everything magically started happening by itself, right? And you are actually doing the work every day to remind yourself of things, to say these things, to so that allows you to show up and make that your reality every day. And then when you do inherent, like, you'll hit a speed bump like everyone does as we're human, but then you can react differently because in that moment you have more capacity built up from all that practicing you've been doing.
Yeah.
So again, you can look at a new challenge through this lens of things are happening for me, not against me in life. Okay, so this thing that's not so great, well, what can I learn from it? Am I contributing to it? So again, once you start operating that way, it happens really quickly each time. You don't have to think through all those steps, right? But in the beginning, you do. And so people are listening to this to make it seem more tangible and achievable. I'm making sure that we are explaining to people that it does require you to be really pointed about it in the beginning. So when you might write it down and say, okay, this is my toolbox, or in leadership athlete language, this is my locker, right? Of little tricks that I can use to ask myself these questions. Because what happens is when you first start doing these things, well, excuse me, when you first start practicing these things, you most likely are going to respond with your habitual way of responding that you've done so far. So then you need to have those tools that you can pick up, dig in your toolbox, get in your locker, and be like, okay, what are the new tools that I have to bring forward to handle this situation? And so when I'm coaching people, I help them to build these tools. When I'm working in a consultative manner with people in business within an organization, I bring this to them also so that when they are handling these situations in business, they're more adept to handle the newest crisis, the thing that pops up, because it's more just they've made it part of their new habits.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad you bring that up, like that that being pointed in the beginning, how to start, because yeah, I think I take for granted the way that I was raised. I had great loving parents, great environment, and good schools, and even like kind of religiously growing up. I wasn't in like a even like Catholic, strict kind of religion. Like I even grew up going to a church, like a non-denominational church, where we learned from all these different religions, and I think that was kind of ingrained into me. But you just saying that there about helping people get into the entry point, like, because we see a lot, just gratitude and write down 5 things every day, and like that really is it, but it seems so trivial and like it's not going to work, even though we know it does. So there has to be different ways, different easy entry ways that people can start realizing something. I don't know, if you're in pain, how do we bring it to them easily? Yeah.
Right. And when I was talking earlier about, athletes who are at the top of their game and they're still working with coaches, they're still working to better every little nuance. Here's the thing. It's the same, I think, for just humans, for business people. And even though we're talking about this, I still do
Mm.
these things myself. I work with a coach every 2 weeks. I The last couple of days I've been really doubling down on my positive, not exactly mantras and affirmations, but like saying things out loud to shift thoughts that aren't serving me, right? So to say things like greatness is coming, like I deserve good things. Again, these are things that it doesn't matter how long you've been operating through this lens, this mindset that we've been talking about, we still need to be practicing those fundamentals, right? A few
Yeah.
years ago, I remember, actually, I don't think it was a few years ago. I think it might have been like a couple days ago, a couple of years ago. Um, I was driving down the road and I had this moment of thinking, you know what? Things aren't happening against me. Things are actually happening for me. And I'm starting to see it and believe it. But I had to be aware enough to like have that realization. And then I needed to remind myself over time, oh, that's an example of things working for me. So when things would happen, I would slow down enough to see, aha, that's an example. So then you actually start to look for those examples when you recognize it that way. The flip side of that is if you have an internal talk track about nothing ever works right for me, I'm always doing, poorly, I don't have any money, all of that, you're reinforcing, and that's what your brain continues to look for because that's all you keep saying. So again, we have the opportunity to face it differently, face it with a different lens, start to talk to ourselves differently, and then continue to use these things. You don't just stop. Imagine if Michael Jordan stopped or Kobe Bryant. I keep referring to them. I should use more modern players. But if they stopped practicing, you know what? They're going to miss their shots then. And you want to know the other thing? I was actually just talking about this earlier this morning. When they do get to the line to shoot their free throws, they're not thinking, oh boy, I'm going to miss this shot. Ah, God, I missed this shot in practice this morning, blah, blah, blah. No, you know what? They're stepping to that line. They visualize the ball going in the hoop. They go through the same motion that they've gone through their entire life and they make the shot. Yes, of course they miss it sometimes, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. It's a completely different reality that they create for themselves
Yeah.
by taking the action, thinking differently, speaking to themselves differently. So it's a really easy thing to draw that parallel to a high performing athlete. The reality is we can choose to do those things for ourselves as humans and as people in work.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I'm really realizing now the link between sports and life and leadership. Like, yeah, that is such like a perfect analogy. And yeah, like Michael Jordan at the line, it's like breathing. He'll close his eyes and shoot a free throw because it's that normal, and it's not work at that point. This kind of practice, it's not work. It's more work. It feels bad to not practice like that. It feels bad to not go through those repetitions. Like when I don't create after some time, I feel horrible. I just don't feel good when I'm not, if I haven't written something, if I haven't spoken something, it doesn't feel good. And it just, like when I don't work out, it's not that I don't feel like, oh, I wish uh, you know, I, I don't want to work out. It's like, shit, it's like I really want to. Like this sucks that I didn't get to, that I missed my workout. And yes, it's gonna like it's expending energy in it. There is a little bit of like, oh, it's gonna be kind of tough, but it's more like I can't wait to go for my run tomorrow, even though, but it's gonna be painful, but I'm gonna love it. And every night I meditate and visualize and affirm. And every night I'm saying, like, Ryan, like, that was so great how you saw that person and you smiled at them on the street. So I love that you talked to the cashier today and you had a good conversation. Like, I love that you love to talk to people. I love that you love to make people feel good. Like, I love that you care about others. Like, I love that you went and talked to mom today and that you called her. And I love that you were present talking to her. Like, that's so great. And that I love that you love to create content. I love that you love to speak. I love that you love to write. And like, I say this stuff every day, every night, because I know that is me. That is the person that I want to be, and I need to affirm that. And then I'll see, like, tomorrow's going to be great. I'm going to have this call with this person, and I know what it is. And I'm seeing myself like I'm going to be like open and energetic, and I'm going to talk to Shauna, and we're going to have a show, and we're going to like go back and forth, and we have good vibes, and we're going to say great things and just have a great time. And I'm going to go talk to these people later. And I just see myself like looking around at others, like looking, not looking down, but looking and smiling. It's like and then that happens. That's the most powerful thing I learned, was especially the visualization. I learned that when I visualize myself and the things I'm going to do the next day, doing those things positively, that happens. And it happens again and again and again. I cannot deny it. I know when things are going to go well.
Yeah. Well, you know it because you put in the work, you put in the practice, and it's as you were talking, saying, sharing your affirmations, and thank you for openly sharing them. I think that it's such a great example of talking to yourself as if you were someone like else that you love. Because what happens is a lot of times we are our own worst critics. We, air quotes, beat ourselves up. But it's, if you think about it, would you talk to your best friend? Would you talk to your child? Would you talk to your spouse that way? Probably not. A lot of times it's like, gosh, the things I have said to myself, I couldn't imagine saying to other people. And it's like, well, that's, if you actually think about that, that is so counterproductive. But that's what we tend to do. I think there's something about the brain is wired to actually to operate a little bit that way. I don't know the full like stat around it, but the brain is naturally kind of wired to do those things, to think of the like the negative side of things. But you don't have to, we can choose to not entertain that. We can choose to catch ourselves in the moment and say, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm saying that. Okay, let me say something else. But it is that element of awareness and not being on autopilot. This is the challenge of things like looking at my phone sitting over here. I've learned to like put my phone down when I'm on calls and things like that. Because to your point about focusing, being present with people, being present with other people, but being present with yourself. That doesn't happen when you're operating at a frantic pace, multitasking all the time. It's like, if we can just breathe some space into our own existence, then we can actually look at ourselves and treat ourselves as if we're someone that we care and we love about. And why wouldn't we be? You're talking about life. Like, here's the thing. We only have one, I mean, as we know it, and you're right, there could be reincarnation and things like that. But as I know it, I have one life to live. And it goes by really fast, and I don't want regrets. And I do look back at some things in my life and I'm like, gosh, you know what? I could have made a better choice, but at the time I didn't know. So I made the choice that I did. And so I learned from it, and here I am today. But I can't beat myself up about those things. I have to keep saying, okay, well, what have I learned? How did that impact me? Okay, how do I want to operate going forward? I can't just blame something on, well, when my parents were, they did this to me when I was young. Well, I'm a grown ass adult. I can figure out how I want to show up today, and how am I actually, like, what are my actions? How are my actions and the words I'm using? What impact is that creating? Is it negative or is it positive on myself and others? And I own the responsibility related to that.
Yeah. 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 I feel like this is where the tool of forgiveness can works
Mm.
so well. Forgiving yourself, and forgiving others, but just saying, yeah, just like telling yourself that it is okay. Maybe the easiest way to think about it is, though, through others. Is, we always look at others, and people, we're always critical of everyone. All the time I walk down the street, I'm like, idiot, loser, ugly, stupid. It's like I don't really mean those things, but they just kind of come up. I like judge their looks, the way that they walk, and the way that they talk, with the way that I think they might act, and I have these negative judgments. But then, one way that I catch myself is just to like forgive everyone for who they are and what they do. Like I would forgive myself for who I am. Like I just am who I am. And
Yeah.
I act who I act. I can't really help it. So I should have that same thing for when I see others. Like how can I blame them or be mad at them or judge them? I need to forgive them for who they are, because there's nothing that they can do too. Um, and then, yeah, I just remember, like, it's never ending practice. I have a thought about someone, and that first thought that comes up, whenever that first thought comes up, I look at it and I dismiss it. I'm like, that's the wrong thought, or that's just a thought. I don't, because it's something, sometimes it's ugly. It's usually ugly. Even if it's not, even if it's like, oh, like beautiful, or like, oh, cute. It's still like, I think, like, what is that first thought that comes up? And I look at it, and then I think, okay, now I want to think either the opposite or something positive, something that's at least different. So I think it's just, I always want to have that awareness, catch it, and then realize that that's just my automatic conditioning, and then choose the thought that I really want, that really is nourishing, and then practice that way.
Yeah, it's so true. And when, again, people may be hearing this and being like, "Oh my gosh, how do you do that all day long? That's a lot of stopping, starting, all this kind of stuff." Again, it probably sounds that way if it's been something that you've not done. But when you start doing it and then you just operate, you probably don't take all those steps every single time because you've taught yourself to approach it differently, or you can catch yourself and switch really quickly where it doesn't sound like that's possible. You know what I mean? Like, again, people may hear it and think that sounds like a lot to do. And when you're walking down the street, just looking at someone, because it's really quickly like that, you can judge someone, right? But again, you've trained yourself now to be like, this is your response to notice, but not take that action. Notice, find forgiveness. Notice, find something positive. Again, but you've gotten really good and really quick at it. One thing, when you said about the forgiveness, one thing I've also had to realize is that sometimes not everybody always needs to be forgiven. That's the right word. And I don't have to forgive everybody. I also don't, sometimes I don't even have to like forgive myself per se. I think about it as like acceptance. So here's the reality.
Yeah.
My father died last year, very short battle with cancer. We had I had a kind of a crazy upbringing, and there were things that happened that I don't forgive him. But the reality is, I also accept that he's my dad, and I accept that he did the best he could at that time. It's hard for me to, I don't necessarily think that it was intentional to hurt me per se, but it did have a negative impact, and I didn't have any remorse from him about the negative impact. It's like I can just kind of look at the situation and assess he was doing the best he could for how he was equipped to be a father, to play that role. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's like, I don't I don't actually need to forget. I don't personally believe that I need to forgive him per se, but rather just accept the fact that he was doing the best he could. And the reality is I was doing the best I could as a kid to grow up. And maybe there was that, we didn't necessarily gel on a lot of things. But what I don't want to do is carry that baggage with me. I can look at it and say, okay, I can accept that that's what happened. And that was at that period of time. And this is where I am today. And also realize that some of what happened did impact choices I made, does impact the why I've chosen to be the way I am in this world. And so I can say, oh, that's interesting. Again, I'm trying to free it up from judgment per se, and I'm trying to free myself up from like carrying this big ass heavy backpack that's going to weigh me down. I
Yeah.
can look at it and leave it in my rearview mirror and keep my eyes going forward and say, okay, what's the next bit of information I need to work with? Because all this stuff is really just information that we have a choice to look at and figure out, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to entertain it? Do we want to carry it with us, or do we want to let it go? So I just wanted to add that part about the accepting. Sometimes at times it's accepting less of forgiving for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's a good point. Yeah. I love that. I love acceptance too. The idea. Just sometimes I'm just like, just accept all. Just accept all, Ryan. Like it is. Just accept it and move and go. That's all you can
But it's
do.
it's true though, because sometimes if you can just accept that, well, geez, this is what it is, it still allows you to figure out, and then what? So what? This is how it is, but I have choice in this. I have choice to stay, to shift, to do something else. You know what I'm saying? But again, it comes through, we don't have to just wear it and be like burdened, bogged down by it. We can accept it. We can go, just to your point, it is what it is, but then what am I going to do?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, we've only got what, those 66,000 thoughts a day or whatever. And again, that's like where this whole repetition of like thinking the things that you want to think and holding those thoughts that you want to hold and not letting the entire world in, really protecting your mind, protecting, being conscious of your thoughts so that you can think the things that you want to think. Like you don't have to pay attention to everything. You don't have to pay attention to everyone. You don't have to believe what everyone's saying. You don't have to watch all these things. You have to listen to all that stuff. Like you should choose only the things that you think are good for you and fuck everything else and fuck everyone else. Like just focus on really what you really want, because there's so much noise. I get caught a lot. I think that, should I be paying attention to that? Should I listen to that? Should I do that? Am I missing out? There's a million things out there that I'm missing out on. But at the end of the day, I just got to trust myself, do whatever I think is right. And that's the best way that I think I can bless everyone, is when I really just can make myself as amazing and capable vehicle of love as possible. Um,
I love that. I love that.
Shauna, can you just give us a final word here, a final thought? Can you wrap this up for us here? This has been such a good convo. We could talk forever. Well, let's definitely do another episode soon.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. I will come and talk with you anytime. I think one thing I will just kind of close it off with is, the more you actually are practicing these things yourself, but then also being able to talk about it with someone else, this is not a conversation that everybody's always having, right? But I think that us pausing to have this conversation with each other today, to share this with your audience, it is it's affirming it for myself. It's affirming it for you. The people who are listening to this, now they can think, and like they have more positive things to sort of chew on and figure out if it's for them. But I say this because if this is something that is resonating with your audience, I really encourage people to not just keep it inside. Don't just keep it in your brain, vocalize it. Start to talk through it. Start to find a friendly who
yeah,
can understand thinking of it this way. Contact, me, contact Ryan. I think that, like, again, the more you can live and breathe this stuff, because this is a practice, is a daily practice that you do throughout. It's not just at a certain point in time you start to think this way. At a certain point in your day, you think this way for 30 seconds. It infiltrates the way you show up in this world. So talk about it. Don't just keep it inside. And then you can really start to play with it and it feels more natural. So that's what I would want to leave people with, is to really encourage people with that.
yeah. Thanks, Shauna. Yeah, I'm totally with you. We need more people vocalizing, yeah, saying what they think, preaching what they practice. I haven't heard that very much. We practice what we preach, but we
That's
should be
good.
preaching what we practice more. There we go. Ay, ay. Okay, that's it. That's it, everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so much, everyone.